At long last, version 1.5 of Cyberpunk 2077 arrived, and issues aside, this patch has done a lot to rebalance the game and reinvigorate the community. With all of the changes, the thing that I was most excited to try was the reworked throwing knives, and based on a lot of what I've seen, so is the rest of the community. This said, throwing knives aren't quite as intuitive as they may initially seem. While they're marketed mainly as stealth weapons, I found them much more useful in outright combat, and this build reflects that. They still work great in stealth, but trust me, you don't need to sneak around to be effective with this build. As always, we start off with the attributes. You're going to need 12 body, 12 reflex, and 20 pool, finishing this build at level 29, leaving you with 21 attribute points to use elsewhere. Body's going to grant us survivability and a lot of healing perks. Reflex will provide us with some necessary cyberware, and Cold Blood does all of that, plus more. Let's talk perks. For body, we're pulling from the athletics tree, and we're going to pick up Regeneration, Epimorphosis, Wolverine, Invincible, and Tenacious V. You might have noticed that all these perks have to do with health and recovery, and that none of them boost damage, but that's exactly the point. Survival's the name of the game here, and these perks will keep you in the game longer before you need to make an exit. For reflex, we're heading to Blades, and we're picking up Blessed Blade. That's it. Now you may think, hey kid, what gives? This is a knife build, and you haven't picked up any of the main Blades perks. What's going on? Well, dear viewer, it turns out that from my testing, not a single one of these perks actually does anything to improve the damage of a thrown knife. They may buff damage when you're holding the knife, but for some reason, the second that thing leaves your hand, these stop working. Now, for Ninjutsu, pick up Dagger Dealer, Ghost, Looking Sharp, Venomous Fangs, Juggler, Neurotoxin, and Cheat Death. All of these perks work exactly as advertised, so no real explanations are really needed here. But I do want to make special note of a perk that we are absolutely not picking up, Jeepers Creepers. The reason I'm mentioning this one is just the sheer amount of misinformation I've seen around the community regarding this perk. The perk reads as follows. Crouch attacks from stealth with melee weapons deal 100% more damage and guarantee a crit hit. It sounds great. More damage, crits go great with this build, but here's the thing. While this does seem to work fine with stealth melee hits, throwing knives apparently don't count as a melee hit. How do I know this? Behold! As demonstrated by this clip here, the perk does not proc a crit, and therefore we've already proven it doesn't work. The crazy thing is, I was prepared to test this numerous times just to make sure it works 100% of the time, and isn't just dumb luck or an increased chance. This was literally the first clip I took. Myth busted, perk doesn't work, move on. Finally, we get to Cold Blood. Pick up Cold Blood, Coagulant, Rapid Blood Flow, Cold and Calculating, Critical Condition, Coldest Blood, and Blood Swell. I want to especially highlight the perk Blood Swell as possibly my favorite new perk added in 1.5. This perk is so incredibly potent. While a lot of skills and trees got hit with nerfs, this is one of the few perks I can say is absolutely worth the investment if you're already speccing into Cold Blood. This thing acts as a second heart with a shorter cooldown, and is really easy to set up, so just do yourself a favor and absolutely pick this perk up as soon as you get the chance. For required cyberware, I've got a few of them this time. To get the most out of this build, you're going to need the Pain Inhibitor, Zetatech Sandevistan Mark III, Legendary Subdermal Armor, and the rare Dense Marrow and Microvibration Generator Cyberware. Starting with the Pain Inhibitor, you can pick this piece of cyberware up from Fingers over here in Kabuki. It requires 16 cool, so this will be a bit of a late pickup for most players. Now, I know how much all of you sociopaths love to punch fingers, but if you're going to get your hands on this tech, you'll need to suppress that urge as much as you can. Yeah, it'll be tough, but with the increased damage by enemies after the recent patch and reduced armor on characters, you're really going to want that 10% damage reduction. The Zeta Tech Mark III is a great pickup on this one. I went back and forth on using Sandavestin or Berserk for this build, but ultimately crit chance bonus offered by the Sandavestins is going to be a huge asset. You can pick up this piece from the Ripper Dock found in downtown city center. The Mark III works beautifully because it only requires 12 reflex, has the highest crit bonus of all Sandavestins at 20% when active, and is active for 16 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. Finish this piece off with 2 prototype chips, purchasable from the Ripper Dock here in Arroyo, and you'll be boosting your crit chance to an additional 10% when active. The subdermal armor is purchasable from the Ripper found here in Watson. Added armor should need no explanation, so I'm not going to give one. Finally, the Dense Marrow and the Microvibration Generator are both purchasable from Kravitz Clinic found here in Charter Hill. The Dense Marrow has no stat requirements, while the Generator requires 12 reflex. These two might seem like an odd pickup, but from testing, it seems that both of these cyberwares do increase the damage dealt by throwing knives. This is great since, as mentioned before, we aren't getting any help from the perks on this one. Grab both of these when you can to improve your damage, and that takes care of all the cyberware. Finally, we get to equipment. It's a knife. I mean, what else would it be, right? Tantos and Kukri both work as well, but I don't know where to get legendary versions of those, so yeah, we're going with the knife. Pick up a legendary knife from the vendor found here in Kabuki, and throw on 3 white-knuckled mods to boost crit chance. Ideally, you'd want 3 of these knives in case you miss a throw, but honestly, just 1 legendary knife with 2 of whatever quality you can find will work great. Since most of the damage from this build does come straight from the damage listed on your knife, make sure you're consistently updating your gear as you go. Once you purchase a legendary knife, this won't matter, since in version 1.5, legendary equipment now scales to your level as you level up. And that's it for this one. No gimmicks, no strange explanations, no exploits, just good, clean fun. As you play this one, you'll likely find that there's a bit of a learning curve with knives, and as I mentioned earlier, this one works a lot better as a combat build than a stealth one, due to the significant increase in aim assist you get during combat. That said, I'm a console scrub, so you do you. As always, thank you for watching. Stick around for the leveling guide, and if you found this helpful, leave a like, comment any questions you still have on the build, or recommendations for future builds, and consider subscribing for more content just like this. So, to start this build off, we're going to give ourselves 6 body, 5 reflex, and 5 cool. Complete the intro in the first mission, and our grind begins. Our first 6 levels are going to go straight into body, and we're going to pick up and max out the perks Regeneration, Wolverine, Invincible, and Tenacious V. These perks will add most of the survivability to this build early on. Throwing knives do great damage with headshots even early in the game, but since our damage is coming from equipment and not perks, we need to take some steps to stay alive in rough situations. At this time, you should also find yourself 3 knives and have them equipped at all times, but don't worry about rarity just yet. Just keep switching out your equipment as you find better blades to throw around. Next, we're putting 7 levels into Reflex to bring it up to 12, and we're picking up and maxing out Epimorphosis and Blessed Blade, and then saving the rest of our perks for later. Once we hit 12 Reflex, we meet the prereqs for most of our Cyberware. During this stage, you should pick up the legendary subdermal armor from Watson as soon as you hit 14 Street Cred, and the rest once you hit that Reflex requirement. So once you do hit 12 Reflex, head to Kravitz Clinic for our Dense Marrow and our Microvibration Generators, and then to City Center for our Sandavistan. If you're struggling with the build at this time and find yourself dying frequently or just need a little help, then you can pick up the Dylinar Sandavistan Mark I from Cassius Rider in Northside as a cheap and effective stepping stone. But if you don't need it, just save your eddies. Finally, we hit the end game where we're just going to be leveling up our cool stat. The next 15 levels are all going straight into cool, and during this time we're going to see a lot of incremental change to the build. Pick up and max out Cold Blood, Coagulant, Rapid Blood Flow, Ghost, Looking Sharp, Venomous Fangs, Juggler, Cold and Calculating, Critical Condition, Neurotoxin, Cheat Death, Coldest Blood, and Blood Swell. Now this is the order that I recommend grabbing these perks just to get the most out of them, but it's your build, do what you like. There's a lot happening here, and at some point during all of this the build is going to transition from feeling alright and working pretty well to feeling great and making it all but impossible to bring down. These changes really are incremental, so don't just give up on this one halfway. Keep playing the game and progress as you make your way through missions. Once you hit 16 cool, make sure you grab that pain inhibitor from Fingers, and then get the rest of the perks, completing the build. With all of the changes that came in patch 1.5, this build took a while to test, retool, balance, and ultimately took quite a bit of messing around just to figure out what actually works for throwing knives. With all the perks you pick up on this one, this build can also work great doing some multi-classing of sorts, like picking up a revolver or really anything you want, but I honestly just prefer using the throwing knives on their own. It's a fun playstyle, and once you get the hang of it, it really is powerful to use. As always, find the build layout in the description, and consider dropping a like and subscribe for more content just like this. This has been Kid, and I'll see you next time.